We're up to our whole interview from June 19th, 1987 with Greg Keelor and Jim Cuddy talking to Steve Burgess about their Outskirts album when you consider all the hits they had after that. More than 24 albums, and it all started with 1987 and Outskirts. Here's the entire chat with Steve Burgess, Jim Cuddy, Greg Keelor, a new band called Blue Rodeo on Rock History Canada.
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg too. No, we didn't play any of the instruments on the album.
The New Monkeys. All right. This is going to be a great interview because I don't know squat about you, so I'll be asking genuinely perplexed questions.
Yeah.
That's the best way. Okay. You are Greg.
That's right.
Yeah. And your guitars and vocals.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
I am Jim. What does it say after my name?
Guitars and vocals.
Oh.
So there's actually...
So I could be Greg.
You could very well.
Quite easily.
There's very little to distinguish the two. Do you guys ever get confused? I mean, sometimes.
Yeah, people often call me Jim, and they call him Greg. And
do you answer to it?
Yeah, I don't correct people when they get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No, we also come to be known as Jim Greg. Jim Greg. Jim Greg. Jim Greg.
Consider that for a band name, maybe. How long have you guys, as a pair, been together? Does it predate Blue Rodeo? I guess it does.
We met in high school, and I guess we started playing music together around 77 or 76.
Yes, we met in the 40s.
What was your first band?
Band called the Hi-Fis, and it was sort of like a power pop sort of thing. We didn't play guitar, so it came out sounding pretty thrashy and pretty fast.
Power Mersey.
Yeah, a lot of Beatle and Yardbirdy sort of influences.
Yeah. So you weren't, even though the time was right and it was happening in England and you couldn't play very well, you weren't inspired by the punk movement.
It almost come. Yeah.
Because that seemed to be like the savior of
Well, that's the reason, I guess, why we put a band together, because that sort of stuff said, well, you don't have to be very good. You should try to write a song or something. But we were so bad that we didn't even sound good bad.
Oh, we did at the beginning. It's funny that because we never sounded better than when we first started. The more we tried to refine it, the worse we got.
Yeah.
We had a single that we put together in 3 months after we were a band. So 3 months after we started playing guitars, and we never sounded better than that single.
That got a lot of airplay in Toronto too.
What was it called?
I don't know why. It's by the Hi-Fis.
And you guys, up until you started playing in 77, you guys knew nothing about guitars or music or anything like that?
Well, a little bit.
They were our first electric guitars.
Yeah.
I've been playing acoustic for about a couple of years, and Jim had been playing a little longer than that. But those were the first electric guitars.
During the early 70s.
Folky?
Well, played folk music and saw every folk band that came through town. And really liked that kind of stuff.
What happened to you?
Oh, it just got so lousy. Christ, they'd see these people, they'd be just terrible. I mean, there was only, for me...
see Dave Bradstreet before you.
Yeah, well, there's... Yeah, you don't want to mention names, but boy, there was some people that could...
How about Brent Titcomb?
There's one of them.
Of course, his name has been changed to protect the guilty.
There's no Van Halen.
No, Titbush.
So the Hi-Fis lasted how long?
About 3 years, and it was on...
We really drove it into the ground.
We were going to sign a record deal with a company out in Toronto called Ready Records. And they said, well, you can sign, but we're not going to record you for about a year, and then it might only be a single. So we had gone through all the negotiations, we had the contract, but it's just that, like, the Edge closed down, which was a bar in Toronto, and then the Horseshoe closed down. And it didn't seem like there was any place to play. So then we decided to move to New York for a while. We started a band down there, and that's what we learned a lot when we were in New York, about just playing, learned a lot about songwriting, learned a lot about...
just how filthy a subway can get.
Yeah, that you can,
and how to
that
get
you can
sleep on
puke
that
on the way to work and not even be noticed by your fellow travelers.
Say, yo, man, here's the Tums. Get to work.
What a scuzzbag place it is. You go there from Toronto, it's bright murals and Canadians walking everywhere, obeying the law.
There's vacuum cleaners on the street. You go to New York, but it was great for us all around, just because of the things that you say. It's a completely stimulating and and eventually overstimulating place, where you just become completely blasé to a gun at your head type of thing.
Yeah. You were still the Hi-Fis when you went down to New York?
No, we were called Fly to France when we were there.
Huh.
We had a drummer from Australia and a Staten Island bass player. It's hard to keep a band together in New York. It really is.
Really?
It's hard for people to support themselves. It's hard to... When we were down there in 81 or 82 or whatever it was, there weren't a lot of places to play. It was, I'd say overall, the kind of development scene, the new band scene, was not happening anywhere.
Yeah,
there weren't a
usually
lot of bands getting signed, and there was no real type of music that everybody was listening to. And it was just kind of all over the place. And I guess for us that was good, because then we spent 3 years playing a lot of different things and learning how to play and just learning how to be in a band. Mm-hmm. And then just before we left and Fly to France disbanded, there was starting to be a kind of performance art cowboy thing. And you'd go to places, and there was a guy named Ned Sublett, for example, and he wrote traditional country sounding songs but with bizarre lyrics, and he was a bizarre individual, and it was very exciting, and you never knew what his lineup was going to be. He might have a bass player, or he might have a tuba player doing the bass, pedal steel, or a violin with digital delay all over it. And it was great to hear that, because whatever form it was, it still had a lot of presence in it and a lot of power. And I think that's kind of put us on a certain track. And we just started to play.
Well, there was sort of a cross. There was another band called the Drongos down there.
Yeah.
And they were just sort of like a guitar pop band. And those two bands, Ned Sublett and a band called the Drongos, and it was sort of a merger of those two.
Yeah, and then we did a tape with the Drongos before we left. We just showed them the songs in the morning and recorded them in the afternoon. And then left New York and sent that tape. I mean, we've been down there 3 years giving tapes around and et cetera, et cetera. Gave that tape around, split, got a call 2 weeks later from EMI. Oh, this is great. Why don't you guys come down and play here sometime? Oh, no, you're kidding, right? This is no kind of joke. But that was kind of, and then we kept along that style of music, and it's funny that when you don't want it to happen, it all of a sudden does happen.
Nothing came of that EMI contact.
Well, more or less, it kind of did, because that guy from EMI then became the head of A&R at CBS, and he really kept the flames going in Toronto for us through the CBS office there, so that got us to the point where we assigned us.
I hope he's been fired.
Well, no, the guy who didn't
Toronto,
like us was David
Bendeth.
Bendeth. He didn't think we were a very good band.
Really?
He tried to make us Katie Lang's backup band. When Katie was coming on, just starting, and she was just at the point where she was changing her band and got Ben Mink and all those guys in it. Well, he said, you guys haven't got a chance of getting a record contract for at least a year. So why don't you back her up for a year? Write songs for her. We thought, you ass. That's why we left New York, get away from people like you.
No kidding. Well, he doesn't he's not exactly your style of music. I mean, you ever hear the Bendeth Band?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's not our
different kind of deal. By the way, you guys were in New York, so tell me Madonna stories. You were down there at the same time she was struggling.
Greg was Madonna's boyfriend for a while. That was
Till Whitney came along.
Yeah, and then I was with
Broke
Madonna
her
for a while.
heart.
I don't know. That breaks our heart to tell those stories.
But you mentioned the Drongos and that other outfit.
Ned Sublett. Ned Sublett is an individual, and he used to play with the guys around. Like Lenny Case used to play sometimes as his pedal steel player. Some of those guys that would pop up would be fairly well known and just they'd be playing an instrument they didn't usually play.
Yeah, Lenny Pickett from Tower of Power.
Yeah, so there were some good players, and it was just there's a place. What was that place called on 49th that they used to play?
Tin Pan Alley.
Tin Pan Alley. And it was a heavy-duty little bar. At the back, you'd see this Ned Sublett performance art cowboy guy. And they draw a pretty weird crowd. And at the front of the bar, all bikers. All bikers. And, I mean Times Square bikers. Like, they're bikers of hell. So it was a really neat scene. And there was no cover charge ever there. And it was really good to go to 4 o'clock.
You were just mentioning the merger of those two, though. Now, you said the Drongos and Ned Sublett. You mean your sound came from a merger of those guys?
Well, I guess it wasn't like a conscious manipulation, but now that when you look at it, those were big influences, and just also just in their songwriting, which was a little more basic and it wasn't as affected.
Yeah. You didn't actually. I thought for a moment there that you might have ended up playing with some of those guys from the Drongos.
Well, we used the Drongos.
We made a tape
We
with
used the Drongos for that was the first Blue Rodeo band was us singing and them playing. and that kind of did set us on the way, because there was a certain rawness to that sound that we used with them that we had not used prior to that. We were very much into arrangements and trying to make things sound like something in the rehearsal and duplicating it on stage. And when we got with the Drongos, we just decided to get that live feeling, just play and see what somebody did that might inspire somebody else to do.
So what happened? How did the current version of Blue Rodeo come together? How did the Drongos fall by the wayside?
Yeah, no, they were their own band. They were never going to be our band. You know, they were just doing us a favor. So when we came back to Toronto, we had always known Cleve. Cleve Anderson is the drummer in the band, and he'd been with the Sharks when we were the High Fives, and they were popular, right? They were popular to us. We used to open for them.
They had Sherry Keane, right?
Yeah, right. And he was with Battered Wives as well. And then Basil was the bass player in the Sharks as well. So Cleve had just had a son, and he was out in a bar, and we met him in the bar, and he was handing out cigars and congratulating himself. And so he wasn't doing anything. And so we said, well, we're not going to get all serious about this, but why don't we just get some people together and play and see what happens. And we put an ad in the Now magazine, which I don't know what the Edmonton equivalent is, but it's like an entertainment magazine that's usually free in music stores and stuff. And Greg wrote it, and it said something like, if you've lost 2 years to drinking, another 2, done acid 20 times, and can still keep beat, give us a call. Basil answered that ad. Seriously. Yeah, that's me. And so that Basil happened to be the Basil that played with Cleve, so we all got together, and it was like two bands that had already played together. Greg and I played together a lot. Cleve and Basil had played together a lot. So we never really had to go through all that new band stuff of getting everybody to play a certain way. It was a really nice, easy merger of people's styles. And then we added Bobby Wiseman. He's a younger brother, very younger, brother of a friend of ours from New York. And so it was just a real nice mix of musicians.
That ad you placed is also the same method used by most banks to hire people.
Yeah. And if you're bonded, please answer.
Yeah. I am here for the job.
Hell. So, okay, this version of Blue Rodeo came together at what time?
About 2.5 years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What the hell you been doing since then, for God's sake?
Oh, we've been playing a lot. We play constantly, but, it took us... we never really thought about getting a record, to tell you the truth. We always thought of ourselves as a live band. We just want to play as much as possible. And after New York, where everything's showcased and you don't play a lot, coming back to Toronto, playing 3 sets a night, you could play 6 nights a week if you wanted. It was a great luxury for us. And it just opened a whole kind of area of pleasure for us. And so we just did that for a long time and built a following in Toronto, inadvertently. And then got signed, and that takes a hell of a long time too. So the records, we just made it in January. And it's pretty hard to go places. It's pretty hard to come to Edmonton and Calgary and Vancouver if you don't have a record, because you can't get a place to play. So,
You wouldn't have us on the station if we didn't have the record.
Yeah, right. That is
We'd
true.
be knocking on your door, and you'd be like...
They even had a meeting, we had the record.
Yeah.
That's right. We took a vote.
Yeah.
And then
You
another
lost.
one. Let's give him a chance.
I lost, and here I am. I figured maybe you guys have been spending the last 2.5 years getting your uniforms together.
It's not easy to find these clothes.
Blue T-shirts with nothing on them, I suppose. You're waiting to get them back from the printers. You're going to get, like, soft drink companies put,
can't
this
afford
space
that yet.
available.
When we sell a few more records, they're going to put some logos on these T-shirts.
Oh, we keep going to Labatt's and say, well, let's change our name to Blue Light Rodeo. Put it, just plaster it all over us. We don't care. We're worse.
When was the... Actually, you can do weird things with this. Guy from the Arrow was in here doing really obscene things with this thing. Never mind.
Thank God he's gone.
Yes, best left alone. Okay, the album. Recorded when, how, where, with who?
Digitally recorded and mastered recorded in McClear Place in Toronto, mastered in New York with producer Terry Brown. That's about it.
Engineer Mike Jones. Recorded in January. What else? What else is there about that?
Use some other people, did you, aside from the band?
No.
No?
The Monkees. Mickey Dolenz played all the drums.
They were bitter because they never got to play on their own record, so the Monkees were allowed to play on the Blue Rodeo album.
Yeah. No, we didn't use any sidemen. We were thinking of it at one point, but We didn't use any sidemen, and we really didn't use any other equipment than we used live too. So I mean, that was turned out to be a kind of conceptual thing for us. We tried B3s and we tried the stuff that was around, and it just always sounded too sophisticated for us. So we just stuck to the stuff we had.
You guys are aware that now I'm just hoping you guys aren't fashion followers, because if you are fashion followers, you're very bad at it.
Why is
Well, we're
that?
victims of fashion.
Victims of fashion.
Yeah.
Well, this music is not exactly what's happening at the top of the pop charts right now.
It's not?
Oh shit!
What I tell you, you see, you're just kind of bad.
Where have we been? Oh,
I knew it. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, it's not. I consider it pop music, you know, but it's pop music more in the way that let's say a lot of the music was in '65 to '67, when the Beatles influenced a lot of American bands like the Loving Spoonful and the Byrds and the Burrito Brothers and, you know, countless other bands that had you know, real jangly electric feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I guess it's sort of, it's songs too. There's, you know, and things that people can listen to. It's the type of thing that you can go back to, rather than the first listening go, oh wow, there's a big hit. But this one, most people have been saying that first time they hear it, they say, oh yeah, that's a nice record. But then the more they go back to it, the more it means to them.
Yeah, my point just being that you obviously didn't get inspired by this record by listening to Janet Jackson on the radio.
We wanted to get more control over our lives.
Well, I guess that we had some of the music that we had done before had been, as I said, a little affected, but it meant that we couldn't play some of the instruments, and you know, there was a phase there where we did a tape without any guitars on it, because we were trying to somehow get a pop song, you know, heard by somebody. And
You get lost in the woods sometimes.
oh, and a good song, yeah, just gets just swept away because, you know, you couldn't express it musically, and you were trying to get other people. You're telling a saxophone player, no, do this. You pick up a guitar and you go, no, play this, and it never dawned on it. Just play it yourself on the guitar.
Yeah, right.
You know, you think you gotta have a saxophone, and you go, no, like this. And the guys go, no, I can't do that. And then you go, okay, we can't record. Oh, we're lost. And so then finally he said, well, you know, we just bought a couple acoustic guitars and said, well, we'll just play guitars, and just strum guitars, do what we do.
Yeah. What sort of input do the other band members have? You guys like despos, dictators?
Well, it depends who you'd ask. You know, we think that we're, you know, that it's really free and open. You can do whatever you want, and they'd say that we, you know, we're real jerks. And
Yeah, well, they can shut up. No, you know, the way that the band writes is more or less that whoever sings the song has started it up. But by the time, when it gets into the rehearsal hall and the band gets their dirty hands on it, it changes a lot, and it's only half formed at that point anyway. So, and the band has a lot of input about how we record, and to me that was half the time we spent in the recording studio was 5 guys trying to come up with a consensus of what they want it to sound like. It's funny how everybody hears their own instrument too. Yeah. I don't think there's enough drums. You wouldn't be the drummer, would you?
I recognize you.
Yeah. Do you hear any guitars on that track? No, they're fine. They're just fine. Wherever they are.
But who decides, like, you know, if it's going to be like McDonald's or Burger King today? It's you guys, isn't it?
No. We
No.
all go our own ways. Like we
It's
don't.
the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and our drummer is the biggest complainer. So he gets his way more often than not, I'd say.
That's a tip for young musicians, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say if you want your own way, complain and whine and squeal, and you'll get it. You'll get it.
It eventually backfires, though. You know, Luther Vandross's drummer just jumped out of a window in New York.
Really?
Did you really?
Yeah, but he was in a basement apartment.
He was trying to get out.
But seriously, was this an audience or an oil painting? Oh, you're out there. I can hear you breathing. Talk about songs, specific songs, starting with the big smash, the hit single. It's called "Try."
Try's a pretty standard love ballad, and in that it has a nice boy-girl relationship that keeps changing in the song because of the confusion in the lyrics, and a nice kind of falsetto voice on top of it. We just did a video for Try too. We did a nice video. It's just a kind of pastiche of images, you know, and because the song is not particularly specific. I mean, you'd ask 5 people what they hear in that song, and there's a kind of a different relationship well, certainly different than what I was imagining when I wrote it. So that's good. So we didn't try to nail down the story in the video. We just try to leave it as these images and girl wandering through and the band playing in an industrial setting.
That's fine, but that's not good for the handicapped who have no imagination, like me. So tell me, what did you have in mind?
Well, I mean, this song is kind of about a guy mooning over a girl, but giving her advice about the rest of her love affairs at the same time, and that kind of painful situation where a guy is forced to be friends with a girl that he wants to be lovers with.
I see. Drawn from personal experience, yes?
No, I'm happily married. Happily married.
Yeah, but there was all those years that you were chasing after
I
all
know.
of this.
Do you want to give some details that he'd be afraid to give?
Oh, just try it. You want to go detail for detail?
Yeah. Filthy secrets that you guys might have. This might be the time for. Maybe you should tell filthy secrets with the people who aren't here, which is always the
Go
best
back
way.
to Brett Sitcom.
Now, when you look down the road past the chart-topping success of Try, what do you see as the next single?
Well, it depends where we just released Try, and the first single off the record was actually Outskirts, and that it wasn't really released as like to be a hit single, but just as sort of like a feeler for the band. And we had made a video. We had started recording our own record before we signed to WEA. We recorded Outskirts, and we made the video for Outskirts too. I don't know. Heart Like Mine is already charted on a national chart on that record, that magazine. Sort of like number 36 on it with Heart Like Mine, because that's the song that the Toronto station's picked up on.
Really?
And in Southern Ontario, basically, is picked up on Heart Like Mine.
So you figure that'll be the next one, huh?
I guess. We didn't really know, we just sent the record around, and I think we're in a kind of glorious position at the moment where people are just choosing whatever they want from the record, and we're getting a good indication of where our sound fits in. But there's quite a few sounds on the record. I mean, Try is not the same as Outskirts by any imagination, but it's being put on different types of radio station, and we're lucky that we're not having to release a single and that's it, and whoever plays it does, and whoever doesn't.
You and you two both sang Heart Like Mine, so whose idea was it?
It was more good.
So you started that one?
I made it really good though. When he brought it, couldn't even hear it.
Terrible stuff, was it?
It was just terrible.
Yeah.
No, don't put yourself down. Right?
So where did it come from? What's it about as you see it? I guess it's fairly self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic in the detail of its pain.
Well, for those that don't have a lyric sheet,
Go ahead.
You see, but then I don't think the songwriter really has the right to tell people, how a song was brought together, because then it dictates to the imagination of the person listening to the song, and I'd hate to rob them of that.
You're just lazy.
You could work for Oliver North.
Yeah,
That's really good.
well, no, on that song, I think that there is no real. The song is just it's just sort of a plaintive forlornment.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah. Well, it speaks to me, It speaks to me, that song.
Yeah, it's a broken heart lament type thing.
Yep.
Have you got a broken heart now?
I'm planning on having one. Maybe.
Oh, really?
I'm sort of working on getting
over the weekend.
Yeah. A busted
Gotta
heart.
read it first.
Yeah.
Joker's Wild is a mean song.
Yeah, it's a song that when you're in the music business, and especially in New York, there's a real nasty side to things. And actually, even back in Toronto, there's just that because of the sort of emulation of bad characters, people who have been in the heroes of rock and roll have all been burnouts. There are a lot of burnouts, and there's a lot of books about Lost Highway. I don't know if you know that book, but it's just a series of country western rock and roll stars who've got bad drug problems and that sort of thing. And if you try to be like the people, that you want to, sound like, or you want to have like the sincerity of a songwriter, somebody, you think to yourself, well, maybe I have to get that messed up, or But it's a crock, but it takes you a while to learn it.
Eric Clapton, being inspired by Robert Johnson, said there was a time when he planned to be dead by 29, just like his hero.
Yeah. And that's a crazy thing, and it's something that we all sort of go through. And that song is just sort of a warning to myself as well as to anybody that you can get carried away in mythology and miss the point of walking down the street and taking in the sunshine.
Sounds dull. Let's do some more crack. Don't listen to him, kids.
Low-cal crack.
Diet crack.
Diet crack.
How long have we talked? I mean, am I exhausted just about every damn thing that you have to say?
I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to have a lot more from Steve Burgess. And as I've mentioned before, between Steve, my former boss, Len Tucson, who also worked at that radio station, 96K Light, he was a program director, and my old interviews, we came up with 350 interviews going back to the early 80s to present day that we've never put up. All these interviews haven't seen the light of day since the 80s, and you can't find them on YouTube. They're exclusive to this channel. If you want a bio on Steve Burgess, he's had a great career. He's writing another book, fantastic photographer, journalist, and broadcaster.